Welcome everybody. This is the campaign candidate launch for Kirstein Rummery, who's going to be the Women's Equality Party candidate for Stirling in the general election this year, which is super exciting and we're really delighted. Thanks everyone for coming along tonight and supporting. Thank you to MacRobert for having us tonight. If you guys want to get involved, if you can get Wi-Fi, you can live tweet at us. The hashtags are listed on the Twitter page. There's Vote We, there's We Are We, there's Weapon Scotland. There's quite a lot, so feel free to do that throughout the course of the session. We're in here till about 9 o'clock tonight. In terms of health and safety, the fire exits are just that way. There's also a really nice cafe bar, so please do go at your convenience and buy tea and coffee and drinks from there. With regards to Women's Equality Party, if you've not heard of us, we've been running for about a year and a half, and we've got several really good candidates running this year across the UK. Kirstein's the only one in Scotland at this time, which is very exciting for all of us. Kirstein's running particularly on an emphasis on care and social care and ending violence against women and girls, all very important topics. Those come in as part of the Women's Equality Party's 7 key aims. If you want more information on that, chat to any of us in the team who've got our web t-shirts on. Take the leaflets and literature from the back. There's also literature from other local organisations that support care and support women who've experienced violence in the home and sexual violence. Take all that literature away with you. Feel free to put some donations in our handy bucket with web stickers on it. That would be really great. And if you want to volunteer your time as well, we are really looking for volunteers and for more members. And again, you can come and speak to ourselves or contact us on Twitter or Facebook to find out more. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Kirstein to do her campaign speech for you guys.
Thank you all for coming, and I want to particularly thank the Women's Equality Party for in Scotland for selecting me to run for the Stirling seat in Westminster. Now, I know that you probably don't know much about the Women's Equality Party and you might not know much about me, so I'm going to tell you why I've chosen to run and why I've chosen to run for this party. I've been an academic all my life, which is why we get to host you here at Stirling campus. It's a lovely place to work. I've always been interested in women's issues. I've always been interested in disability, health and social care, and that's what I've done a lot of my research on for the last 20 odd years. When I first started out in the early 1990s, community care was just coming in, and my research showed that social care services in community care were really helpful when they were well resourced and provided properly. They really helped disabled people living in the community, and they really helped carers as well. But we got a lot of flack when we started that policy and we started looking at it, that would stop families providing care. And a lot of our research showed that actually it didn't stop families providing care at all. What it did was free people up to provide the sort of care and support that they wanted to provide, rather than the sort of care that they were forced to provide because there weren't any alternatives. And the outcomes for disabled people, for older people, for carers were absolutely brilliant when it worked. But it was clear even then, to me as a researcher, that the system was under strain. And pretty soon it was clear that the care services were openly rationed, that it was very difficult to get access to them. And particularly of interest to me with my kind of women's equality hat on, most of the people that were providing paid care were women, and they seemed to be very underpaid and very overstretched. And the people that were providing the top-up care, the kind of filling in the gaps of the formal services or providing the majority of the care at home, were also women, and particularly the people who were providing the really hands-on heavy stuff. And it seemed to be, when the care was provided, it was very much about meeting the organisation's needs. And it was very, very difficult to fit in to what people needed themselves. And it wasn't controlled by the people who were using the support. And that seemed to me to be a concern. And I think we have seen some really innovative changes in social care. We've got self-directed support in Scotland. And when it works still, it can be incredibly good and empowering, and it can really help carers and it can really help disabled people. But in terms of the funding and in terms of the priorities given to it, things have gotten worse. At the moment, councils are facing about £57 million of cuts every year to try and meet the budget needs. And this is very much driven by funding formulas set at Westminster. And the Scottish Government has tried to ameliorate some of that, and local authorities have tried to ameliorate some of that. But it's basically because there's this idea that because of austerity we have to balance the books and social care has to be cut. And it's only going to get worse. One estimate is we're going to need another £666 million by 2020 just to keep the system going, and the system at the moment isn't meeting enough people's needs and it isn't working terribly well. And I sat in the early 1990s as a young researcher trying to write things that policymakers and ministers would listen to, and I said back in the 1990s, this could work really, really well, but it's underfunded and families are really under strain. And all of us as researchers have been saying that for 20 odd years, and the situation's only got worse. And I've been told over and over as a researcher and as a campaigner that now is not the time, that we'll get round to sorting out these issues when we've sorted out other things. And I was also told, wait, particularly since 2008, wait till austerity is over. Wait till the economy is in a better position. Wait, and then we'll get round to you. And the thing is, like many of you, I get very frustrated with waiting. I don't like waiting. But particularly because of the effects it has on my family and the people I care about, I don't think we can afford to wait. I think we need to sort out issues like social care now. Now, I've worked with all the political parties over the years. I've worked with Labour, I've worked with the Tories, I've worked with coalition government, I've worked with the SNP in Scotland. And they've all said, yes, we hear you that this is important. We do think it is, but nothing has changed. And every time I, as a voter, go to the polling booth, it's with an increasing sense of despair that none of the parties that I can choose from are taking these things seriously. Which party could I vote for? Which party had policies that I believed in? And then I heard about the Women's Equality Party. And it was very much a party that was starting to say things that made sense to me. It was saying things like, women's work is important, but it's undervalued. Women's work is underpaid, and we've been saying this since the Equal Pay Act in 1970, and we haven't made much progress on it. And I think the issues around social care and childcare are because they are seen as women's work, and we're told to wait in line as women so that our issues can be sorted out after everything else. And I don't think it is women's work, I think it's everyone's work. But I also think that's why care workers get paid so little, because it's seen as women's work and it's undervalued. That's why attention hasn't been given to sorting out the crisis in social care, because it's seen as work that women will do, and if there isn't enough funding, women will pick up the slack. And that's not right. And I'm fed up of being told to wait. I don't think we can wait, we need change now. And the Women's Equality Party isn't waiting, and that is why I'm standing for it. And it's stepping up and it's saying now is the time for change. This isn't an election that's just about Brexit, it's just about independence, just about all the other things. It's actually about people's real lives and the things they care about, and we can't wait to improve things. We can't wait to change things. Now is the time when we need to start doing this. Now is the time when we need to start valuing care work. Now is the time for equal parenting. And also, now is the time for more women in politics, definitely, and that's another reason why I'm standing. I looked at my local council elections and I saw overwhelming majority of men, new men coming into my local council, and a lovely picture of them all, particularly the new Conservative councillors standing there in their suits and looking very young and enthusiastic, but looking very monochrome. And I thought, that isn't a party I can vote for, that isn't a local council that I can really believe understands me and my issues. They don't represent me, they don't look like they've had the same kind of life as me. So I joined the party and I've been asked several times to consider running for election, and each time I said, no, now is not the time. I'm very busy. I'm a busy working mum, and I will support the party, but I'm not going to stand for election. And then I suddenly thought, women are still being paid less. Only a third of our politicians are women. If now is not the time to stand, then when? So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm saying now is the time. Now is the time to make our voices heard. It's the time to particularly start highlighting valuing care, valuing the work that women do. And that's why I'm now running for Parliament, and I'm trying to change things from a political perspective. Now, I just want to talk about 4 areas that the Women's Equality Party believes in and tell you why I really, really believe in those things. One of the things, the first thing, the thing I've talked about, the Women's Equality Party is the only party that seems to really believe in properly funded and universally available social care. As I said, services are at breaking point. There are home carers who are having to deliver help in homes in 15-minute slots. So they run in and they have to do something and they run back out again because of funding constraints. I don't see how that can help the people who are doing the work, and it certainly doesn't help the people who need the help and the support. No one is getting enough money to pay for the support they need, even if they're getting it through self-directed support. It's happening at the same time as huge funding cuts. So people are left to actually manage these budgets on very little resources. And that's not what the system was designed to do. It was designed to empower people and help people control their services. It wasn't designed to make the bulk of the cuts fall on them and them take responsibility for it. I know, because I've looked at good social care in this country and I've looked at it abroad. And if you invest in good social care, the estimates are that you actually see a return on that investment between 2 and 5 times your initial investment. So I don't understand why it's seen as a burden on the taxpayer. We know that good social care helps disabled people and to work, to parent and care and be part of the community. We also know it helps carers and families, and it helps relationships and it helps communities. It improves the work-life balance and it frees people up to be friends and daughters and wives and husbands rather than carers. And I think that's better for everyone. I know from my own experience that that's better for anyone. But we keep being told now is not the time to increase funding on social care. And with austerity, we need to balance the books. We'll get round to it, but now is not the time. And I want to tell you about my son. I won't name him because I got into awful trouble for even saying that I was a mum and a carer. And the fact that he's very angry about that and can tell me that he's very angry about is actually the outcome of some of the help and support that he's had. He's got Asperger's syndrome, which is an autism spectrum disorder. When he started school, we were told that he would never make it. He would never make it in mainstream education. He would have to go to a specialist school. He was too disruptive, and he was hiding under the table every time somebody tried to talk to him. And he got help from a really fantastic local organisation called Plus Here. And first of all, he started going to social events that were just general social events, and I can tell you how much he hated those because that wasn't his thing. Then they started some really specialist things specifically around helping Asperger's kids. And he started going to those and he absolutely blossomed. And he blossomed to the extent that when he got too old to go to those, he mentored other younger children with Asperger's. And actually mentoring and helping other people within that organisation opened up his world in an absolutely fantastic way. He learnt not just to be a mentor, but he learnt how to talk to parents and teachers and produce training videos and packs to help parents and teachers cope with their children who have Asperger's syndrome. He also has talked to other organisations and the government about it, and he's become a real ambassador for Asperger's. And he's gone off to university, and he's doing it independently. He now lives and studies at university, gets some support from the university, but he is studying and having an absolute wonderful time, such a wonderful time that he only emails me to tell me off about things now. Now, that wouldn't have been possible without the sort of support that he got from Plus. It wouldn't have been possible without the other kinds of support we got. We got occupational health helping us, we had speech therapy helping us, we had child and adolescent mental health services helping us as a family and helping him. We had support in the education system. We had hundreds of people over the years who really stepped up to the mark and helped my son, and by helping my son helped me to be his mum and to be a proper mum and the best mum I could be and help the rest of the family. Cuts to funding mean that it's not going to be possible to help people like my son anymore. It's going to be really, really targeted, and even when it's really, really targeted, it's not going to help and support people properly. And that means not just that the services that will be at breaking point, but families will be at breaking point. I can't tell you how often I was in pieces on the sofa and a caring professional worker would help pick me up and put me back together and put our family back together. And it meant I could work. It meant I could welcome you all here to my university. And it meant Ewan could thrive. And don't tell anybody I told you his name, because he'll kill me. The thing is, those cuts and the pressure in social care translates out into pressure on the NHS as well, particularly with growing numbers of older people needing help and support at home. And the NHS, with the best will in the world, is at breaking point as well. So we can't afford not to invest in this. And we can't wait for this to be solved. We have to sort this out now. We have to make sure our voices are heard and politicians listen to us and sort this out. Now, the Women's Equality Party also believes in equal pay. The gender pay gap, where we have got data we can use, we know that it's around 15% when you look at men and women's average hourly earnings. We also know that when you look at full-time earnings, it gets a bit less. It's around 11% in Scotland. But when you look at the average earnings, seeing that most men work full-time and a lot of women work part-time, then you see the huge gaps. You see a pay gap in Scotland of nearly 33%. On average, women in Scotland are earning £182 a week less than men. Now, this has obviously got a huge cost to the economy. The tax revenues alone could probably support adequate funding in social care and support the NHS if that pay gap were addressed. And I keep getting attacked by this, and I will get attacked by this, particularly by men's rights activists, because, oh, we've had the Equal Pay Act. You know, men and women are not paid differently for doing the same jobs. What is actually happening is what we call occupational segregation. Women are clustered in low-paid jobs, and men are clustered in higher-paid jobs. And women are also more likely to take time off work to care and then come back when their wages are lower, and they're more likely to work part-time. Women are doing the work that is undervalued. Women are doing the work that is underpaid. Can I just give you one really good example that I found out very recently? Refuse collectors on average in Scotland earn about £2 to £3 per hour more than childcare workers. Why? Do we actually value our bins more than our children? I don't think we do. But we seem to value men's work more than we value women's work. That seems to me to be the only explanation for that. Because there's all sorts of structural arguments that men have to work outside and they have to do this, that and the other. But if you look at childcare, any of you who've had children will know that it's a really, really hard job. I come to work to have a rest from my day job and my real job. And I certainly, when I'm handing my children over to other people to look after them, I want those people to be properly paid, properly qualified, and not doing it out of the goodness of their heart, but doing it because they're going to do a proper job. And we need to recognise that and pay people who are working in the care work industry properly. It's not right. You know, we can't afford to wait. We can't afford economically to wait to address the gender pay gap. We actually have got to do something about this now. The third reason I'm running is because the Women's Equality Party really does believe in equal representation of women in politics. And when I looked at this, I had a question in my mind that might be a question in all of your minds as well. Why have we sleepwalked into this crisis in social care that's been brewing for at least as long as I've been working in the industry? Why was 76% of the costs of austerity borne by women, particularly low-income women? Why have we seen huge cuts in personal independence payments, ESA, people losing their motability cars, people dying from terminal illnesses while being assessed as fit to work? Why have all of these things happened? Why are women still paid less? How old am I? 46 years after the passing of the Equal Pay Act. And that's because women and disabled people are not at the heart of politics, which means that women's concerns are not at the heart of politics. Their voices don't get heard. And across the UK, we've got at the moment 23% of members of the UK Parliament. Actually, we don't have any members of the UK Parliament, strictly speaking. But before Parliament was dissolved, 23% of them were women. Looks slightly better in Scotland, and you might say, wow, well, we've got a female First Minister, and all of the heads of the parties, of the ones that we can name apart from the Liberal Democrats, are women. But if you look behind the scenes, only 35% of MSPs are women. Wales is looking slightly better. 41% of the National Assembly in Wales are women, but less than 20% of the Northern Irish Assembly are women. And I've yet to look at the numbers, but I don't think it's gone up substantially. 32% of local councillors are women. That's not right. It isn't right. Now, when I decided to run for the Women's Equality Party, I said, well, there's a couple of things. I don't think I need childcare, because my kids are old, but if I did need childcare, would I be allowed to claim it back? And apparently, not for me, but for an earlier round, the Women's Equality Party asked the Electoral Commission, you know, when we give our candidates support with childcare, where does that count under the various complicated funding allowances that candidates are allowed to have? And the Electoral Commission had never been asked that before. They came up with a good answer, and it was fine. So at the moment, we're asking them, because I'm disabled, I've got fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis and PTSD, so I need a personal assistant to help me in this campaign. There used to be a fantastic scheme in Scotland that supported disabled candidates, actually got 15 disabled candidates into local elections, local councils who wouldn't otherwise have been able to run. Not allowed to run that for the Westminster elections. Westminster won't run its own scheme to support disabled people into office, even though there have been 2 attempts at getting legislation through that have gone all the way through the committee stages. It's been filibustered out. So we asked the Electoral Commission if my party could help me with some disability costs, and I'm sure we'll be able to, but they'd also never been asked that before. So no party has ever thought, do you know what, we might actually want to support women and disabled people into getting into politics and help meet some of the costs that are a real barrier for people gaining access to it. Now, I've been asked lots of times, why on earth do we need more women in politics? Surely people should be there on merit. And they absolutely should be there on merit. But women have different experiences to men. They experience childcare differently. They experience poverty differently to men. They experience a different kind of threat of violence against them, rape and sexual assault. They experience caring and parenting differently to men. They experience working, using services, and working in care services, particularly, and in low-paid services, differently to men. And I think we need people in politics there with a very wide range of experiences. I think we need people there who reflect our lives and the things that we care about. Because I know darn well if there were people in politics who were making the decisions who'd had to rely on social care, we would not be seeing the cuts to social care funding that we're seeing now. And I just want to say, and this is nothing about the people I'm running against or any of the other candidates, on the whole, men are not in politics because they're there by merit. They are there because the system privileges them. Nobody ever asks the men if they mind being there on the grounds of privilege. They only ever ask the women, do you mind not being here on the grounds of merit? Merit can be seen in lots of different ways. One of the merits that's used in politics is that we always have incumbents up for re-election. Well, that just means that a system that is already overwhelmingly populated by men gets populated by men again. There's no way for new candidates for women to break into that. We also see when political parties, as the Liberal Democrats have done recently in Scotland, say, oh yes, we do have an issue with gender representation, we'd like to get more women in politics, we're going to target certain seats, and then something comes up and they go, oh, but not that seat, because that seat we might win, so we need to put our best man in that seat. We'll target women in other seats. So this, commitment to women's equality and getting more women into politics is kind of paper thin, and it goes as soon as something else more important comes along. If we don't do something, it's going to take over 50 years to get equal men and women in politics. I don't have 50 years to wait, and neither does anybody else. My daughter has 50 years to wait, but I don't want her to have to wait 50 years. Now is the time to do something about this. We can't afford to wait our turn as women in politics any longer, and we can't afford not to be in politics, because at the moment it's broken and it's not working for us. So we've got to get in there and try and fix it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that the Women's Equality Party does to end sexual violence. There are some really good policies that our party has around providing sanctuary for people who are the victims of sexual violence, but perhaps more importantly, preventing sexual violence, dealing with the issues around education and consent in schools, in universities, in further education, so that girls and boys grow up knowing what consent means and knowing what healthy sexual relationships look like, and understanding what using violence and rape looks like and how to prevent it. And I just think that is incredibly, incredibly important. And if we don't fix that, then our society is very, very broken. 1 in 5 women experience sexual assault in their lifetimes. So that's 1 in 5 of either you or people you know, your sisters, your mums, your aunties, your friends. I'm one of those 1 in 5. When I was at university, far too many years ago than I want to admit, I was raped. And the effects of that have haunted me my whole life, and they contributed to me having post-traumatic stress disorder a few years ago. When it was happening, I was so traumatized I dissociated, and I've since found out that's quite common for people who experience that. And when it was over, I was so upset that I destroyed all of my clothing and I scrubbed my room clean. My mum would have been proud. I've never cleaned anything like that since. And with the help of a friend, I reported the assault to the university authorities and to the police. And I was told, because I'd scrubbed the room and I'd destroyed my clothes, that I had destroyed all the forensic evidence. So basically, it was my word against his. And I was also told that the Crown Prosecution Service wasn't going to take the case forward because they'd spoken to my attacker and he was an ex-boyfriend of mine. So I previously consented to have sex with him, so I must have consented on this occasion, when I clearly hadn't. Also, he came to my room, knocked on the door, and I opened the door and let him in. So I must have been consenting to something. I wasn't consenting at all. And this is the one that really gets me. My attacker had admitted what he'd done and apologised. And he was really sorry. He misunderstood the signals. And in the view of the Crown Prosecution Service and the university, he'd suffered enough because he'd been questioned by the police. And it was best to draw a line under it. I had to take my final year exams in the same room as him. 26 years after it happened to me. And we've got to do something about this. We really do. We can't afford to wait anymore. I can't afford to wait till it starts becoming an issue for my daughter. I need it sorting now. So that's why I'm running for Parliament, and that's a sort of a bit of a downer to end on. I'm running for Parliament partly because it's really, really exciting, and I've never done it before. I'm running for Parliament because I think there needs to be women like me in Parliament, and if I don't get into Parliament, hopefully somebody else will look at me and go, well, she tried it, I can try it. I'm running because I think, both from my work and my life, that equality is better for everyone. That if we address all of these issues that I've talked about, that we will get a better society for boys and girls and for men and women. I'm running because we have got to end the culture, rape culture and sexualised violence against women and girls. We have got to do something about that. We've got to get more women in politics, and we can't wait anymore. I'm running because now is the time, because if not now, then when? So obviously I'd really like all of you in the room to vote for me if you're in Stirling. I'd like you to help me spread the word, because we're a small party and we're up against some really, really big parties who are making a lot of noise, and the purpose of the Women's Equality Party is to get women's voices heard and women's issues heard in amongst all of that noise. Get your friends and family signed up, because the more supporters we have, the more volunteers we have, the more members we have, the more funds we have, the louder our voices are. And that's really, really important. I really want you to help me make some noise and fix politics and change things. And I really want you to help me get the causes that I care about, that you care about, that we all care about, get heard and dealt with properly. So that's the end of my speech. Thank you very much for sitting through that.